Hey guys, welcome back to Surreal Beauty. I'm Tiffany, and I really wanted to touch on a topic that is super sensitive and I'm sure it can reach home for a lot of you guys, including myself. I wanted to talk about toxic families and how that can really impact us as individuals and as we develop and move on in our lives and just transition into adulthood. I am someone who is a product of coming from a toxic family, but what does toxic family even mean? Let's dive into it. Stay tuned. What is a toxic family? What do I even mean when I say toxic? And by that, I mean, if you've experienced family members that are very overly critical, they're always criticizing you, they disrespect your boundaries, maybe they're emotionally manipulative, they just don't seem to care about your feelings, there's no respect, and it just feels unsafe, whether that be physically or even emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I know this feeling and understand this so well. And at the time, as I was growing up, I didn't quite understand it. And it took me some time as I got older, because I used to think all families operated this way. And I learned after getting around other people and their families, seeing how they interact. And I quickly learned, like, okay, this is something that my family does, but other people don't always other family dynamics are not the same as mine. And so even something as simple as like a friend, seeing how she reacted with her brother and how they connected, like they'd say they love each other, it wasn't weird, it wasn't awkward. And I'm like, oh, so maybe other families aren't weirded out by like the love and the connection and things like that and just being there. Whereas in my family, I found that was something, I'll be honest, it just was almost non-existent. Like I don't really recall consistently saying I love you to like brother or sister, things like that. It was just, hey, so if you come from something similar, or if you can relate, this video is definitely for you. We're gonna dive in, and I just want to create this space where we can talk, process, and reflect on some feelings. So how did I even know that I was growing up in a toxic family? Everyone's story and experience is going to be different. And so I want to be mindful of everyone's experiences. Also, feel free in the comments to share your experience or anything you'd like to share below. I'd be open to hearing from you. I wanted to use this time to talk about where I come from, how I've kind of developed, and how it shaped me as a person that I am today. And so our families are the foundation of us, how we see the world, how we view the world. Our relationships with our parents, our relationships with our siblings, they help almost mold and shape our perspective on how we create relationships in our lives as we move forward. And so if the family around us is, let's say, not the most healthiest, this is how we learn and pick up patterns, behaviors, attitudes, and just things like that. And so I grew up in a household with a single mother. Father was non-existent. Mom was a single parent of 6 kids. Mom had to work. And so she was definitely emotionally unavailable, physically not present all the time, obviously having to work and things like that, which was very understanding. But definitely growing up, it was a lot of confusion in times where, let's say when my mom was home off of work, why isn't she spending more time with me? Like, what is this about? And granted, mom was tired and things like that, but I still yearned for family connection, like going out to picnics and just spending more quality time. And as I started to get older, the more I started to normalize not having family connection, the more it started to become normal to me to not say really, I love you. The more normal it was to not say that my mom was completely absent, but with the father not being present and my mom just being as present as she could be, that became my new normal. It's almost as though I had to like raise myself, and I started to like get involved in sports, and that was an outlet, that was an escape. A lot of the decisions that my mother made, I really don't agree with a lot of them. It definitely put me, and I speak for myself because even though I have 5 other siblings, truly speaking on myself because all of our experiences are different. But I know with a lot of the decisions and choices my mother made, it put me in a tough spot. And I remember thinking that this isn't me, this isn't my life. These are her choices, and unfortunately, I'm just caught and stuck with it because I am not old enough to support myself. But I always made a promise to myself that as I got older and as I became of age and mature enough to take care of myself, I would make it my best interest. I would make it my mission to defy the odds and to turn over a new leaf and to do what my mom didn't do. One of the biggest indicators that I knew I was coming from a toxic family was when I got into high school, I started doing sports. It was an outlet, right? So I say outlet because at the time, my mom, again, how I just mentioned, she made really poor choices and things like that. And as a consequence of some of her poor choices and decision making resulted into like me and my younger sister at the time being homeless. And so when I say homeless, I mean living in the car, right? Going from shelter to shelter, having to go to a friend's house to shower, or having to go to the gym, the public gym, to shower there. It got that real. And I remember feeling so ashamed, so isolated, so lonely. I could not possibly begin to even tell my friends what I was going through in my personal life. And so what that did to me, it was to go into a shell, okay, and to kind of become reserved, to close in. I didn't want to open up. I didn't want to make friends. I didn't want to date. I wasn't really, like during high school where it's that exciting time to have fun, hang out, get wild and free, date, kiss a guy here and there. That experience on a personal level, it just did not allow me to make friends. And not saying that because I was dealing with that in my personal life that I couldn't do those things. I just could not find myself to open up that side where I was happy or joyful, because I wasn't. I was very sad, very shell-shocked, just insecure. And when I say insecure, just insecure within myself, with my stability, with my home life, with my foundation. It just sucked. So then I started doing sports, and that's what kind of got me away and allowed me to escape. And one of the first sports I started doing, I actually started doing volleyball, but volleyball came way before the whole homelessness and just like the whole riffraff, okay? So I started off like after volleyball, I did basketball. Basketball was cool, I liked it. I wasn't passionate enough about it, and so I didn't stick with it. And then I had went out for the track and field team. I did tryouts, things like that, made the team, and I was pretty good. So I found something that I felt like was mine. And as I looked back and reflected on why I liked track and field, or let's say over basketball, and maybe I was gonna say volleyball, but I actually really loved volleyball. But again, volleyball was during a time when things were a little bit more, they were okay. But basketball, I didn't like it so much because it required having to be around other people, having to connect and share, and track and field was almost like an individualized sport. So yes, and ultimately with track and field, the teams come together and you want to win the championship, and so all the points count. But as far as you and your individual event, it is you, yourself, and I. And so I appreciated being able to just focus on myself, my talent, my drills, my skills, and just developing that. So I stuck with track and field. It gave me an outlet so that when I left school, I didn't have to go to the homeless shelter. I was able to engage in an activity and not be so reminded about how much life sucked. When I say life was miserable in high school, it was freaking miserable. And maybe I made it that way too. I probably made it worse by staying in that shell, not breaking out and opening up to friends. I just did not have the capacity to do so. I was so ashamed. And that almost became my identity. Ashamed, feeling worthless, unloved. And so I did sports that helped me out. And all the while I'm doing sports, I'm not really getting the support from family. Of course, there's no, and actually, let's just kind of like, let me just kind of put it out there. I happen to really be really good. Okay. And for some of y'all that are new here to my channel, who've been, or who has not been aware of the fact that I am tall, I'm 6'3", so athlete caliber. So yes, I was definitely very good at sports. I had all the potential in the world. And what I noticed was, because my mom was not the person that was like my supportive, blanket or whatever, my coach became that for me. And so my coach kind of took me under his wing. He mentored me. He also became like a father figure to me, which helped me at track meets and things like that. And honestly, I can remember there was one time at one big track meet I was at, I broke down crying before a competition because I don't even remember why, but I know it was related to my mom. She may have texted me something, I don't remember, but I broke down crying. And it was probably something revolving around her not showing up, or she had said she wouldn't show up to the meet or something like that. And I remember breaking down crying, and my coach just hugged me tightly, because and I remember him saying, like, Tiffany, I don't know what that could feel like, but he just held on. And it was a very emotional moment for sure. So then I actually went on to win the competition that day, took first, which was amazing. So I thought like sports was definitely an escape. It was like my go-to away from the life that I just completely hated. There was just no family. There was no love. There was no yearning. I think my mom cared more about her relationships with men. And I always felt like, you had 6 kids, you had 6 golden tickets, like you can cash this all in and we could be the best thing, but truly, I think actions speak louder than words. And if you want my personal opinion, I don't think my mom really cared. I don't think she had the capacity to truly love, because I never felt it. I never experienced it. To this day, I can remember, because the thing with us kids, when we're young, we may not understand all the words that are being said, but we understand feeling, energy, vibration. And I just never felt love. And I used to think that I was crazy for thinking that. But as I got older, to this day, I'm like, oh yeah. It just wasn't love. It wasn't real, genuine love. And as a result of that, I never learned how to love. So now I'm like becoming this adult. And again, parents are so critical. Family is so critical. I don't care how old you become, how old you get. Family, I do believe, is the core of everything. And so in those times of need, even as an athlete, and not just as an athlete, just even as a student in college, as a young girl, transitioning into my teenage years, to adolescence, to adulthood, becoming a woman, all of these things are such critical milestones in our lives. And having your mom and dad be able to guide you and mentor you and support you through your way is so ideal for just a healthy, nourishing, development and maturation. And so for the longest time, I felt like a young girl stuck in a woman's body. I was this woman, right? Force, whatever. But I was a young girl inside, and I just could not understand how to break out of that, and it's just so important to have, and even if it's not like your biological mom and dad or parents, like having people that are figures that can help mentor and support you is super important. So one thing I mentioned about just like toxic family, what does that look like? And it could be like unemotionally supportive people, crossing of boundaries, and just not feeling safe. I would say like at the height of my career as a track and field athlete, when I tell you, even that the high school I went to college, I went from like not just taking first, but making national championships, becoming a national champion, breaking the high school record, things like that. My mom never showed up to a track meet, ever. I would say like later on in college, I can maybe count on one hand how many she came to, and that's less than 3. But during high school and just as I transitioned to college, it was a tough time because I had to figure out how to become this force to be reckoned with, this competitive spirit, be strong, and not be emotionally like broken down by these things that I'm sharing with you today. I will say, like I once also said, my coach did a really great job with just take me under his wing and just kind of fathering me. I mean, so much so, like, it would be like holidays, you know, when school is on break and stuff like that. Like, I just, like, he had daughters too, so I don't want to make it sound weird. He had daughters, and I knew his wife and things like that too. So, like, they would do gift giving or Thanksgiving. I'd be invited over, and it'd be like a cool thing. So I was able to get that family, like in the invitation to like other families. Like, I did notice that families were open and loving and taking me in, but it always reminded me of the family that I did not have. So for a very long time, the idea of family and anything that reminded me of that triggered the living SHIT out of me. So while it was in good faith that my coach and just people that I knew, friends that would invite me to their households for their family events, gatherings, whether it be Christmas, Thanksgiving, parties, things like that, I could always remember feeling my mood shift, and it would switch, and I go from really happy to really, really sad. And I didn't know how deep wounded this wound is, and I guess we'll call it the family wound. Crazy, but yes. And you know, it took some time for me to understand, to grasp, you know, what I was experiencing, how severely, deeply traumatized I have been, and just the work of healing that was right ahead of me that I needed to take on in order to heal, in order to overcome, and not be vulnerable and subjected to the dysfunction that comes from coming from a toxic family. And let's not get this wrong. Coming from a toxic family, you are very inclined to pick up very toxic behaviors and patterns. I did, okay? I'm talking, I didn't know how to love. Very incapable of love. I wouldn't say I was incapable of loving, just didn't know how to love unconditionally. I only knew how to love conditionally because that's what I was shown. Just didn't learn how to really have loyalty with the people you love. It was loyalty to self. You know, I picked up really nasty habits and patterns and attitudes that later on I had to learn and undo ways. And one of the biggest things that I will say, and how I kind of mentioned I was a girl trapped in a woman's body, working in the sex industry. And if you watch a lot of my videos early on, I talk about my experience working in the field. All of this stuff is crazy, but it all kind of circles back, right? And I can say that I wouldn't say unwanted, but the love that I didn't get or receive from home, I started to seek it outwardly. And for some reason, I did not think being an athlete was enough. And maybe because like family didn't show up, I couldn't tell you when sister or brothers, like again, I can count on one hand less than 3 times. So competitions are like throughout the year, all throughout 8-10 years I was doing it. So not seeing that support from your family, but seeing other people's family come, it started to take the feeling and the meaning out of it. I mean, I'd be at times where I'm the winner of a big competition, and it was bittersweet because I won, but I had no one to share that experience with. You know, so I just learned to be for self. I just learned to live for self, you know. But there's an upside to all this. I don't want it to sound like it's sad and it's gloomy. It's just I want to also acknowledge that a lot of us come from broken homes. A lot of us come from toxic families. You're not alone. And with that, let's talk about how can we heal from this? Is it possible? Yes, it is. How can we do this? Well, first, I would definitely check into some therapy. I know that there's a lot of stigma around it, but this is actually part of the reason why I decided to get into the field, because I wanted to learn and understand my trauma. And then the fire grew with me, and I wanted to eventually start helping people heal from theirs. And so I would say one of the first ways is to understand what your trauma and how you've been severely impacted by it. And through therapy, you are able to process, discuss, and reflect on who, what, when, where, why, how. And then the next thing that you want to focus on, once you recognize your patterns, habits, and the ugly stuff, right? You look in the mirror. Now you want to start cleaning it out. You want to start changing your ways. You know, there's this saying, we are not responsible for what happened to us when we were young, but we are definitely responsible for our healing. Because it's not cute being in your 30s, 40s saying, well, my mom or my dad used to do X, Y, and Z, and this is why I'm like this. It's like, I mean, you have every freedom to grow. And you can change the narrative. And I think that's the power and the beauty about life. And this is what I discovered on the other side. And so on the other side of the brokenness is healing, it's light, it's freedom, it's everything you want it to be. I began to walk with God. I began to tune into my spirituality, journaling, for all you folks that like to write. And if you don't like to write, we have like our digital iPhones and things like that. You can literally talk into your notepad and it transcribes it for you to just let out all of the hurt and drama and let it off of you onto a canvas that's blank. Being able to just like get that out is so powerful, so transformational, and I recommend this to every single one of you all. And once you've done that, once you've let it out, I want you to forgive yourself. I want you to release the guilt from yourself, understand the part that you may have played in the trauma or lack thereof, and forgive yourself and love yourself and be gentle with yourself. And every day as you move forward, you take it one day at a time. You tell yourself, you know, I am worthy, I am lovable, all the great things that God has already claimed us to be. And lastly, the power that we have in the beauty of life, we get to create our own tribe. We get to create our own family. And I think this is the part where I'm at. Super exciting to understand and know that, you know, family is not just who you are related to by blood. It's the people who love you and value you. And you get to choose those people. And so that's where I say, as you do the work, as you release the guilt, as you do all the forgiving and forgiving others and all these great things, you're going to therapy, we're just cleaning this up, you know. Now we get to choose the people we want into our worlds, and we get to make sure that these people respect and know what our boundaries are. They know who we really are and they love us. And I think that's the beauty of life. So my friends, all you beauties out there, it is definitely possible to heal from trauma. It is not easy. It is so hard. And I'm going to just be honest. Not a lot of people just say, oh yeah, you got to heal and this and that. It's hard. It is hard. But, we'll get into it another time. You know what I'm saying? Again, if you have questions and things like that, definitely drop some comments below. I'm super interested. But yes, healing is not linear. It's not just one direction. It's like this, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. I am still on my journey to the day that I leave this beautiful earth. And I'm here to say to you, my friends and lovely ones, that you are capable of healing as well. And if you felt like you learned something from this video, be sure to like and maybe subscribe and share this video with a friend and a loved one and get them all involved. We're all in this healing. We all need love. We all yearn for love. So let's get that. Let's create that into the life we want. But until then, I'll see y'all.